Hey guys, how's it going? If you're still obsessing over Kong's armored-clad arm from the new Empire trailer, then we have a treat for you. In this video, we will explore some insane powers of Kong which he has exhibited throughout his explosive career spanning 90 decades. How mind-blowing was his arm-stretch punch, or his ability to adjust to gravitational inversion? One incarnation of King Kong also had a power of absorbing electricity. Yep, you've heard that right. First introduced in 1933 as the eighth wonder of the world, this ape monster was an allegory for humans' tumultuous correlation with nature and the fear of the unknown. Even before Godzilla, there was Kong, a king and a god of his native land. Hence, it's no wonder that through the course of his evolution, Kong has come to achieve a gamut of incredible powers. So let's take a look at them, shall we? But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Unveiling the legend, tracing the origins of Kong. We all know King Kong as the chest-thumping, city-rampaging, and menacingly roaring monster who has been both the tragic anti-hero and a benevolent protector depending upon his story. Broadly, Kong is the inhabitant of a remote island, a place where myth and science meet, called Skull Island, which is also inhabited by multiple species of monstrous creatures. Occasionally, Kong has often been removed from Skull Island by human intervention and introduced to modern civilization, leading to chaos and confusion. However, some movies have changed Kong's native island to Faru Island and Mondo Island. Some source materials links Kong to the only remaining member of a species called Megaprimatus Kong, which are a prehistoric gigantic primates that originated and lived on Skull Island. Meanwhile, his backstory, as mentioned in the 2005 book Kong, King of Skull Island, reveals his species, the Kongs, existed in large numbers on Skull Island, but were hunted by bloodthirsty dinosaurs named Death Runners. A young Kong witnessed the death of his parents during an attack by the Death Runners and their matriarch, Gaw. When he avenged his parents' death by killing Gaw, Kong came to be regarded as the king of Skull Island by the natives. The gigantic skeletons that remain in Kong's lair are said to be his parents. The monster versus Kong's origin story is similar to the book version. He is introduced as an adolescent monster on Skull Island whose parents were killed by the giant amphibian predators, the Skull Crawlers, making him the last of his kind. In Monsterverse, Kong reached adulthood by 2024, growing to humongous proportions. The Skull Island Temple has a depiction of Kong kneeling in front of the carcasses of his parents. Now let's take a look at Kong's astounding range of powers. Extraordinary strength. Kong's primary power is his extraordinary strength, all thanks to the gigantic ape-like ancestors. The 1933 Kong could tear off a Pterosaurus's wings, fight off a giant Elasmosaurus, and even defeat a Tyrannosaurid, which is a dinosaur twice of Kong's size. Kong can spot and kill a gigantic mire squid by ripping off its tentacles, and can disorient skull crawlers with its blows. Kong is strong enough to pin the alpha skull crawler known as Skull Devil to the ground and destroy it by tearing off its sturdy tongue, which latches onto him. With his mighty fists, Kong could incinerate the dinosaur kaiju Gorosaurus, defeat the giant octopus, and also knock down a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He is able to pick up a crashed helicopter, which has trapped a gigantic Sker buffalo, literally single-handedly, and on another occasion, frees himself from the anchor chains of a ship. Kong grabbed one of the giant winged snake-like monsters named Warbat, only to use it as a weapon to smash another one. Kong's most prominent displays of strength have been whenever he's been pitched against the king of the monsters, Godzilla. Kong is powerful enough to disorient Godzilla several times, though never completely defeating him. In an epic move in Godzilla vs. Kong, the King of Skull Island resisted Mechagodzilla's power-packed punch with just his left arm, a fight which ended with Godzilla decapitating the robotic monster and ripping off its mechanical spine. By the way, did you know King Kong was the first American-made monster to battle Godzilla in a movie? Tremendous durability. Buildings can crash down on King Kong and he will still walk out unscathed. Over the years, Kong has proved himself to be immune to conventional weaponry, enduring barrage of bullets and spear attacks among other things. Kong has a troubled relationship with helicopters, frequently grabbing him, swinging them, and crashing them down to counterattack. Kong has also survived skull crawler attacks and Godzilla's atomic breath blasts, which left some of his fur burnt. One of Kong's most significant weaknesses is fire, but despite that, he has extreme temperature tolerance, surviving getting berthed in a lake filled with napalm, which was the doing of the antagonist Lieutenant Colonel Preston Packard. Alternatively, he can also survive in the sub-zero temperatures of Antarctica, owing to his fur coverage. While battling Godzilla in Hong Kong, he survived Godzilla's claw attacks and tail whips. Kong only appeared vulnerable when his left arm got dislocated and his heart slowed down by Godzilla stomping on his chest. Great intelligence and emotion. Undoubtedly, Kong is an extremely intelligent titan who was able to identify Preston Packard and his group of people as danger while remaining indifferent towards other humans. While facing off against Godzilla, Kong realizes his opponent's kaiju superiority underwater, and hence he forces Godzilla to come out to the surface so that he has the upper hand. In the fight sequences, Kong keeps bridging the gap between himself and Godzilla and also redirecting Godzilla's head, preventing the latter from shooting out his atomic blasts. He also tricks Godzilla into getting distracted by throwing a crane at him. Owing to Kong's intelligence, he understands the effectiveness of accepting Godzilla's atomic blasts to power up his axe so that Mechagodzilla is defeated. Kong showed his emotional side by establishing a connection with Gia, the adopted daughter of monarch scientist Dr. Eileen Andrews. Gia is the only surviving member of the Iwi tribe who lived on Skull Island and worshipped the Kongs for several centuries. After the death of Kong's parents, he continued to coexist with the Iwi until they were wiped away in future events, with the exception of Gia, making her the only surviving member of her tribe. This sort of shared history strengthened the connection between Kong and Gia, the only human who can communicate with him and has his trust. Kong also goes out of his way to save the photojournalist Mason Weaver, who establishes a special connection with Kong through her respectful attitude towards nature. Kong allows Weaver to touch his face, admiring her in his hand. In the 2005 King Kong remake, a memorable scene portrayed Kong and Ann Darrow bonding in Central Park against the backdrop of a chaotic New York. Excellent climbing and leaping skills. Despite Kong's enormous size, he is adept at scaling buildings, where he finds himself in the midst of the high-rises. He climbed the Empire State Building in the first ever King Kong movie, resulting in an iconic scene in cinematic history. Interestingly, that was the first idea director Merian C. Cooper had while conceptualizing the 1933 movie. Moving on, Kong also resorts to perching himself atop exorbitantly tall structures in Hong Kong in order to escape Godzilla's atomic blasts. Kong mostly maneuvers with leaps covering great distances and heights, like jumping from a cargo ship into an aircraft carrier with ease during his battle with Godzilla. Inside Hollow Earth, he took an extraordinary leap from a mountain cliff while heading towards the home of his ancestors. Speed and agility. This brings us to Kong's enhanced speed and agility, picking up pace with his knuckle walking at times in a quadrupedal manner. Kong moves at a faster pace than other titans, running at great speed, which is in contrast to Godzilla's slow-paced movements. He is quick to dodge bullets and the Skullcrawler's attacks from behind, while swinging his arms at great speed to deliver counterattacks. Owing to his agility, he was easily able to traverse through the tunnel leading into the Hollow Earth by swinging on the pipes. Enhanced senses. Kong is equipped with enhanced senses, which allows him to anticipate threats, such as when he detected the Meyer squid lurking underwater while drinking from a lake moments before it attacked him, or when he could hear the Skur buffalo trapped under a helicopter crying to be released. Kong also woke up from his slumber and got visibly agitated as he sensed the arrival of Godzilla long before everyone else, when he was being transported on a carrier ship. When contained inside the gigantic dome created by Monarch, Kong could sense he was living in an artificially created environment. Kong has enhanced night vision too, which enables him to distinctly see through complete darkness and spot people on a cliff at the dead of the night. Great swimmer. Kong may not prefer fighting Godzilla underwater, but he is an excellent swimmer. In the 1967 movie King Kong Escapes, Kong took the ocean route from the North Pole all the way to Japan to ensure that Mechanicong meets his end. After the climatic finale in Tokyo, Kong swam back to Modo Island. In 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla, Kong actually defeats Godzilla in an underwater battle, following which he swims his way to the Faroe Island. However, the latter incarnations of Kong cannot hold their breath for long underwater and need to resurface frequently. Territorial and protective titan. Owing to Kong's tragic origin story, he is extremely territorial and protective of his land, witnessing the death of his parents following an attack by a pack of skull crawlers. Kong vowed to protect Skull Island against predators. The movie Kong Skull Island establishes Kong as the guardian of not only Skull Island, but also the people of the Iwi tribe, protecting them from all sorts of predators, most importantly the subterranean reptilian skull crawlers. The Iwi believes that if Kong dies, the island would be rampaged by a giant skull crawler emerging from the sea. The comic Skull Island, The Birth of Kong, shows Kong protecting humans from monstrous threats such as Mother Longlegs, Death Jackals, and Siren Jaws. Sharp reflexes. Kong is the king of reflexes. Remember how he stopped Mechagodzilla's spinning tail moments before it was about to drill into him? If we go back to his previous appearances, Kong has consistently exhibited his sharp reflexes in every movie ever. From chomping on Meyer Squid's tentacles in Skull Island and grabbing a giant snake by its neck in 1976 King Kong, to dragging down a pteranodon by its tail in the 1933 movie and catching a falling ant during a Vastatosaurus attack in 2005's King Kong, he has always proven himself to be the undisputed king. Power of communication. Because of his deep connection with Gia, Kong was surprisingly seen to understand what she says through sign language, such as when she pointed towards the portal into Hollow Earth and conveyed the word home and communicated to Kong that your family might be down there, prompting Kong to journey towards Hollow Earth. During the climax of Godzilla vs. Kong, it is Gia who convinces Kong that Godzilla is not the enemy and that he needs to help, and in a tear-jerking moment, she also told Kong please be careful before he went on to fight Mechagodzilla. Adjusting to gravitational inversion. One of Kong's impressive feats was his ability to survive the force of gravitational inversion, which is a planet's worth of gravity flipped in a split second. When he landed on Hollow Earth, Kong withstood the gravitational inversion, which launched him into Hollow Earth at a speed of 1,000 kilometers per second, and he bypassed the gravitational inversion twice. Second time, when he climbed through the Hollow Earth tunnel, arriving in Hong Kong. Electricity absorption. The first Kong created by Toho, which appeared in the 1962 movie King Kong vs. Godzilla, could be strengthened by electricity absorption. After arriving in Tokyo, Kong was able to bite into the high-tension barrier wires charged with 1 million volts of electricity, which prevented even Godzilla from entering the city. Instead of getting weakened, Kong actually drew strength from the electricity currents. When Godzilla knocked him out during a fight, Kong was revived when he was struck by lightning from a storm, sending a surge of electric current through his body. Once re-energized, Kong electrocuted Godzilla with his touch. Fun fact, King Kong's power of absorbing electricity was based on the monster created by Dr. Frankenstein for a King Kong movie, which was eventually scrapped. Sadly, no other reincarnation of Kong, whether in Monsterverse or otherwise, has inherited the power of electricity absorption, making the 1962 Kong one of a kind. Willpower to resist Ghidorah. Another mentionable trait of Kong was his ability to ignore the three-headed King Ghidorah's call to hunt together, which roused monsters all over the world to bend to Ghidorah's will. Owing to Kong's willpower, he was resistant to Ghidorah's summon, proving yet again his status as an alpha titan himself who isn't submissive in any situation. In the novel, when Ghidorah lets out his roar, Kong chooses to ignore it, knowing it would not harm his land, Skull Island, in any way. But he seemed stirred up when Ghidorah's roar awakened the skull crawlers and the leaf wings on his island, and also sent a surge of cataclysmic supercells rushing towards it. Power-packed arm stretch punch. Needless to say that Kong's arms are his greatest weapons. In Godzilla vs. Kong, when the two titans clashed for the first time midway into the ocean, Kong was seen delivering power-packed punches to Godzilla with impressive arm stretches. The first arm stretch punch redirected Godzilla's head, and the second one tipped him off the carrier ship and toppled him into the water. Mind you, Kong was heavily sedated and hence was out of his element at this point, while Godzilla, on the other hand, must have been at full strength. Even when they battled each other in Hong Kong, Godzilla roared in pain when Kong punched into his injured leg. Before getting his hand dislocated, Kong's hits made Godzilla writhe in pain, stagger, and bleed, even when Kong was not at his full strength and capacity. Improvisational use of tools and weapons. Kong is adept at using weapons, which are often objects from his surroundings, which he improvises to use as attacking tools. Kong has ripped off tree branches to attack a skull devil once, and another time used them as spears to inflict damage on the dome around him created by Monarch. Kong also resorted to using a ship's propeller as a saw blade to rip open the skull devil's throat. Before that, he used the propeller attached to a chain to trap the skull devil and drag it towards him. Kong has hurled fighter jets at Godzilla and also effectively used a radio antenna to deflect Godzilla's atomic blasts. In the 1962 movie, Kong threw a gigantic boulder at Godzilla, briefly stunning his opponent underwater. However, Kong's ultimate weapon is his ancestral axe, which Godzilla charged up with his atomic breath and Kong used to destroy Mechagodzilla. Guardian and leader of other creatures. Some narratives portray Kong as a revered figure among other monstrous creatures of Skull Island, while he was also worshipped as god by the Iwis. Having lost his parents to the predatory skullcrawlers, a young and alone Kong took on the role of a leader quite naturally, protecting the weaker titans from formidable threats such as the Skur Buffalo from the skullcrawlers. Witnessing the protective side of Kong, Monarch entrusted Kong to keep the monster-heavy ecosystem of Skull Island under control. Strategic thinking in combat. Owing to his extreme intelligence, Kong employs great strategic thinking during a fight. In addition to delivering impactful punches and powerful kicks, Kong strategizes his movements by leaping down from heights to gain advantage over his opponent, like he did while saving Andaro from not 1 or 2 but 3 Vastatosaurus Rexes. He also exhibited his ability to be stealthy when he concealed himself away from Godzilla by hiding on top of a high-rise before launching a sudden attack on him from behind. Kong's combat strategy changes with each opponent, be it the Skullcrawlers and the Mire Squids, or Godzilla and Mechagodzilla. Recuperative Powers. Kong may not have regenerative powers as enhanced as those possessed by Godzilla, but he too can quickly recharge himself after being drained of strength. In the 2017 movie Skull Island, Kong was rendered unconscious for a while from a flaming explosion, soon after which he regained the strength to battle the Alpha Skullcrawler and then walked away showing no signs of distress. During the final showdown in Hong Kong, Godzilla almost kills Kong, slowing his heart down with his attacks. Kong recuperates soon after as Nathan generates a blast on his chest with the HEAV missiles. Kong fixes his dislocated arm by banging his shoulder against a building and proceeds to take Mechagodzilla down. Kong recovers from being almost dead to full strength in a matter of minutes. However, Kong does suffer burns from fire. He was also seen washing his arm to heal his injuries from a clash with helicopters and bearing wounds on his chest. When injured, Kong's fast metabolism enables him to regenerate damaged tissue much faster. Marvelous verdict. With all these impressive powers in his arsenal, no wonder that Kong bows to no one. And in addition to his incredible abilities, Kong has an armored arm now. Kong is stubborn enough to not respond to King Ghidorah's calls and brave enough to earn the respect of Godzilla. The two are even partners in crime in Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, with Scar King as their foe. What do you guys think of Kong's incredible powers? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you liked this video, please give us a shout out and watch this space for more marvelous content.